Good evening, everyone. This is Jeff with Astroscoop Deep Dive Astrology Coaching. It is 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and welcome. This is my weekly live stream here on YouTube at Astroscoop 3801, and right now I'm keeping it Friday nights at 8 p.m. Carolyn says, good evening, and we'll wait a few minutes to see if other people pop in. I'm looking outside, and of course it's still incredibly dark and cold, and we're in between storms here on the East Coast. We've had back-to-back snowstorms, which is kind of typical for this time of year, but the storms haven't really been that bad. But it has been a constant stream, no pun intended, of precipitation, rain, sleet, snow here on the East Coast. So we'll wait a couple minutes to see if anyone else comes in. And Astroscoop, I have weekly or monthly videos here on YouTube, so check those out. And if you sign in to YouTube using your account, you can subscribe to Astroscoop. You can click on the bell and click on the notification and designate all videos or personalized. So whatever you want. If you click on all, you'll be notified of every video. If you click on personalized, you'll be notified of certain videos of mine that relate to what you viewed recently. So it just kind of just tries to guess and decide for you what you want to watch. But yes, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. My subscriber base is growing. It's better, but it's still moving very slow. So please, if you watch my video or you catch the replay, again, sign in and please subscribe. I really appreciate it. And this way, you don't have to remember or remind yourself to come on, and you can get the scoop and keep in the here and now of Astroscoop. So we're going to wait a couple minutes to see if anyone else comes in. How's everyone doing this week? Today is Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone. February 14th, 2025. And it's interesting that Valentine's Day falls in the decan that we talked about last week. I talked about the third decan or decan of Aquarius, which is Uranus ruled and co-ruled by Venus. So it's interesting that the 14th falls in the previous decan. This is my sheet here. Decan 3, February 8th to 15th. So that's kind of interesting that we have this concept of love and Cupid in the last phase of Aquarius in the Venus decan, and then close to the Pisces Aquarius cusp, which we'll talk about tonight. And this is what this week's cusp, I should say, coming up, that starts on the 16th, is, as all cusps are, incredibly kind of complex and a really interesting melding of the two elements between Aquarius and Pisces, air and water. And I know we talked about this last year. I was going to watch my Aquarius videos from last year or the first Pisces video to see what I had said, but I didn't get a chance to. But check out my latest Aquarius videos, The Essence of Aquarius, where I break down the decanates, and that will most likely be my last Aquarius video for a while. And soon I'll be doing all the Pisces decanates 1, 2, and 3, and then I will do an update on this cusp that's coming that we'll talk about tonight, the Aquarius-Pisces cusp. Because as I always say on the cusp periods are the most complex, and they really are a complicated blend of the strengths and weaknesses of the two signs. So you have two signs with strengths or flaws instead of just one sign with strengths or flaws for your sun sign, which represents your identity. But I want to just take a moment to thank all of my viewers lately. I mentioned the last couple of weeks that Pakistan has been giving me the most views as far as non-US countries. So I really appreciate that. Also getting some views from like India still and a couple other countries. But Pakistan has been the most watched, or I've had the most viewers. So I appreciate that. And then in the last week, now my views in the United States here are growing, and they account for about 30% or a third of my views. So that would be, 3 out of 10, 3 to 4 out of 10. So that's great, the United States. And that's also indicative of the people that subscribe to me, because sometimes I take a look at when I see a new subscriber, I can tell if they're in the United States or not. I can't always tell, but sometimes I can. And I've noticed more United States-based viewers starting to subscribe. So that's a great, great trend. And let's keep it going as we have the last few weeks here of winter, going from midwinter to late winter. All right, so we're about 6 minutes in, and I see there's a couple people here. And I know that people come in and out and like to, catch different parts. But generally, let's talk a little bit about the transits quickly. Then we'll talk about Aquarius, CUSP, and then celebrities. And then we'll see at the end, maybe go back to the transits. And there's a astrological chart I have pulled up on the computer that I want to mention of a celebrity that's born on the cusp on February 20th that I think that's no longer with us, that has passed, but he really exemplified the Aquarius Pisces cusp strategies and kind of how he lived his life that I'm going to talk about, and I'll mention him a little bit later. So keep in mind what I say about this combination of the elements, and then when we look at his, take a quick look at his chart. So February 16th to the 22nd here is the Aquarius Pisces cusp. Now those dates are going to be a little off depending on your calendar or what system you use, but I always look up the degrees. All that matters to me is if someone gives me their birthday and their year, and I need the time zone. So if you're born in New York, it's going to be different than if you're born in Australia or something. So the time zone is really important for that accuracy. And then that gives you the software program will give you the exact degree in minutes of that planet at the time. So that really helps you to hone in on the sign, the degree, and then whether or not it's a cusp degree. But generally speaking, the 16th to 22nd or 23rd, depending on the year, describes this Aquarius Pisces cusp. So today is the 14th. So today we're at 26 of Aquarius, which is getting very, very close to Pisces. So today someone is still in Aquarius, but they're much closer to Pisces, and they're going to start to show, as the cusp start to show some Pisces characteristics. But February 15th, most years, still late Aquarius. And then the 16th, late Aquarius, starting Pisces cusp. If you're February 17th and 18th, you're most likely still an Aquarius, very, very late. And then most years around February 19th is when Pisces starts. But this week, the 18th, I believe, is when we start Pisces. So we start Pisces a little early this year on the 18th, but that's still a cusp. So we'll talk about that. So the cusp is Aquarius and Pisces. We've been in Aquarius all this time. We've been talking about just basically Uranus and the Aquarius decans with the different co-rulers, which are Uranus, Mercury, and Venus. But here we have air and water coming together. And that's a very interesting mix of thought and feeling. So I've been talking about a lot about Aquarian people being kind of detached, caring and detached at the same time. Caring and detached, detached and caring. Now, whether you view Aquarius, uh, that type of Aquarius, as cold or aloof, it really depends on the situation and what the context of your relationship is with an Aquarius planet. But as we've been talking about all the Aquarius planets, Aquarius cares usually from a distance. So that doesn't mean uncaring, though. It doesn't mean uncaring. And, there's an argument to be made about other signs that can be more smothering with their love or affection. It can be positive, but that could also be negative, and not allowing people to breathe or allowing people to have space. So there's, two schools of thought there with air and water. But this cusp is thought and feeling. So as with all cusps in the zodiac, there's always this seesaw balance and the seesaw mechanism of both signs of the elements. And because air signs are mostly into thought and being thoughtful, and water signs are more intimate, and especially Pisces being the last sign is more into feeling. So when you combine thought and feeling, you inevitably have someone on this cusp that will struggle, especially when they're young, especially like teenage years and 20s, as they go through some of the Uranus and Saturn returns and aspects, will find it, many Aquarius Pisces people will find it hard when they're young to break free from some of the scripts in their family. And because there's a part of them that wants to rebel and may not exactly know how to do it. And then there's a part of them that really wants to be accepted and kind of taken care of, and wants that Pisces part that wants connection. So there's a seesaw there between thought and feeling, caring, and then remaining kind of detached or distant. And that is not always easy for Aquarius Pisces people. And the interesting thing is the Aquarius Pisces people I've known on this cusp, and I haven't known a ton, but I have looked up a lot of celebrity people, especially for this week, and I did last year as well, that are born on this week, and try to get some indication of what happened in their personal lives and marriages and with their craft as far as acting, writing, or singing, music. There's no doubt that the people born on this cusp are just as unique as a full-on Aquarius person. So that's another thing that sometimes people get confused with, or beginning astrology students get confused with. So if someone's born on the cusp, they're generally somewhere between 26 degrees of Aquarius up until probably around 3 or 4 of Pisces. So the confusion comes in when someone says, hey, I'm born February 17th or February 18th. I'm 27 or 28 degrees of Aquarius. And then my friend is, February 1st, and that person is 11 degrees or 12 or 13. And that person might say, we're nothing alike. Or it's amazing, we're both Aquarius, but I do this and she does that, or she does this and I do that. So there's so much fine tuning with the decanates and the degrees, and then of course what else is the rest in the chart. And when I watch other astrologers that are really, really good, and even astrologers that run rings around me as far as the mathematics and the midpoints and things like that are far beyond where I am, far beyond my lane, so to speak. All astrologers have their gifts, and we all have different gifts, and don't let anyone else no one else can take that away from you, no matter what any other expert astrologer. I I never hate on any astrologer or healing person. Uh, if they know more than me in certain areas, or they're more advanced than me, or they're more composed than me, good for them. You know, there's no reason. The beauty is they're just tapping into their potential, into their talent. And that's what I hope that I'm doing. So we all have that. We all have that. And that's not like just a fake sentiment to tell yourself to think positive. We truly all have that. But you have to believe in yourself. And with this cusp, with these cusp degrees, that's why an Aquarius that's born the 17th, 18th, or 19th is so different than a February 1st. Or last week, we had a person that told me they were born, I believe, on January 29th, 86. So that person was a very early Aquarius, probably somewhere around 6 or 7 degrees. First decanate, all Uranus, not a cusp, very different. But Aquarius people on this cusp are always going to show I mentioned last week that Aquarius 3 people are kind of like pleasant rebels. They can be rebellious, but they're really pleasant and friendly and social. They can drive you crazy, but they can also be fun and charming and very smart and very thoughtful. That's Aquarius planets. And I've had a lot of friends throughout my life. I don't know why, but there's definitely a thread. I mean, I look up everyone's chart that allows me to, or that I can find. I will look up even a person I just meet. If they don't mind, I will look up their chart, and I just have to know. I have to know the planets. But I've known so many people in my life with Aquarius planets, especially moons, Mars, Aquarius rising, and there's always a thread of uniqueness and quirkiness there, quirky. But when you have a cusp planet like this, now the thought and wackiness of Aquarius runs into the melancholy of Pisces. So I mentioned before that some Aquarius people, when they're young, they might want to rebel against their family, and their families are often misunderstood by their families. So that's definitely will resonate with Aquarius Pisces people. They can be the black sheep or the odd person out because they march to the beat of their own drummer with these two signs. Aquarius being so independent and individual, and Pisces having their own sort of fantasy life and belief system. And that combination, family members can often misunderstand them. So it takes a patient and insightful family member to be able to tune into them, communicate with them, and to see their better qualities, and to get past some of that aloofness that's there, which, by the way, is to protect themselves. I mean, we all do it to some extent, but cusp people especially, and Aquarius, Pisces, there's a lot of protective measures there. If the Pisces person wasn't treated well, the Pisces Aquarius person wasn't treated well or mishandled in youth, of course, they're going to build a mental or emotional wall so that they can have that private life, that private inner life that's protected. And that's very much a combination of these two signs, but it's very much the Pisces influence as well. So that combination of Uranus and Neptune, it's like they're the quiet rebel. Like last week, late Aquarius is the pleasant rebel. These can be the quiet rebel. And so whether that's positive or negative, it depends on what the context is. But so I think, if you were to marry or date someone on this cusp, if you didn't know anything about astrology or didn't have a lot of insider wisdom, and you said this person was distant, you might look at that one way, and most likely probably in a more negative way. But if you understand the wisdom of it and where it's coming from, then you might be able to ask the Aquarius person, Pisces person, the right questions in a way that you can get them, you can understand where they're coming from, kind of thing. but they're not caught easily. I mean, this is definitely not someone that you're going to catch easily in any way, shape, or form, as far as trying to date them or trying to marry them or trying to pin them down at work, or trap them into a certain job or a community position or something. No, between the air Aquarius and the Pisces, elusive Pisces, very, very hard to catch. I don't know if that's conscious or subconscious on their part, but it's just the way it is. And that's also for CUSP people. CUSP people are a little more elusive with the 2 signs and the period, so it's harder for them, can be harder for them to integrate. But these late degrees here, you know, that's why people are often confused when they learn astrology and then they look at other family members that are the same sign. You know, so a lot of people will say, oh, there's 4 Tauruses in our family, but we're all so different. You know, well, of course, you're going to have different Venus signs, different rising, but also different dates. And even if you have 2 people born in the same week, if you had 2 Aquarius cusp people, let's say in your family, they're family members, they're going to be different generations most likely, and then they're going to have different Uranus signs and different Neptune signs as well. So that will completely throw off, you know, the trajectory of why, you know, 2 Aquarius Pisces cusp people are not necessarily alike. But what they will share is a quirkiness and a uniqueness to be who they are. And they're kind of like, I want to join and connect with you, but no, I want to run away. I want to join and connect. I want to swim away. So that's Pisces here, Pisces Aquarius cusp. I want to connect and join. I want to leave. I want to connect and join. I want to leave. So it's the seesaw, and that, you know, that's got to be difficult, because in life we're always trying to find that balance with people, with our friendships, with our spouses, our loved ones, people we date, close friendships, about too much space or too much closeness, too much space, too much closeness. And it's damn near impossible to find that balance with most relationships, right? Because relationships go on a monthly basis, kind of go through, they ebb and flow, and they go through these stages where 1 month it never stays the same. Even with an intimate partner, it's always, there's always a like a chart where it's 1 month it's closer, the next month it might be a little more distant, more space, the third month it's a little more neutral, now it's a little more intense. So, you know, that has a lot to do with our hormones and our cycles and all sorts of, and psychological, our balance and our cycles as well, our energy level, so many different things. So cusp people are going to show that seesaw. And the people I've known on this cusp, there's always this knowing about them. You know, I've been mentioning about Aquarius, how Aquarius people just naturally know. They just naturally know what they know. Doesn't mean they're egotistical or they think they're better than you or know more than you, because they're very able to embrace your special talent and your wisdom in addition to having their own. They do want to share theirs, but they're not requiring you to adopt it and to be theirs. So that's a really big plus of people on this cusp, is they don't do it, they don't will it to someone else like maybe like a Leo might do. And a Leo might do it with the best of intentions and love, but it still might be a place where it's too overbearing as far as adopting a certain belief system or being open-minded to something. But that Uranus and Neptune is really is a seesaw of fantasy life. And it's also the main thing with Aquarius Pisces, as opposed to someone that's just an Aquarius or just a Pisces, like we'll talk about next week, is the person on this cusp, they battle between abstract concerns, you know, the metaphysical stuff that's way out there, and then the deeply personal stuff. And on any given week, they will be intensely focused on one or the other. And that's how they can seem distant. Does that make sense? Because if they're consumed and engrossed in spirituality, which is the group, they're not neglecting their personal relationships or concerns, but they're just not tuned into it. Their radio's not as tuned into it. Then 2 or 3 weeks later, maybe they're taking a break from the spirituality, and now the Pisces part of them is more concerned about the family, animals, and their personal connection with people that they love and care about, whether it's from a distance or whether it's up close. But it depends on where they're at. So I think that's why sometimes someone on this cusp can seem aloof, because of that thought or those feelings are going into something either abstract or highly personal, kind of thing. And that's the air, sort of the air water thing. But it can create a chip. And this goes with, especially with young Aquarius Pisces people, especially before the Saturn return. So under 28 and under, I would say, probably from teenage year to 12 or 13 is when the aspects in your chart start to get a little rougher. And that's why you start to see 12, 13, and 14-year-olds change and rebel with a little sass, a little attitude. We all did it at 12 or 13, 14. It happens. Oh, Smashmallows is here. Happy Valentine's Day. Hello. Welcome back. Thanks for hopping in. And so that's why you see sometimes kind of a chip on their shoulder with people born this week. There's definitely, there's still that rebel inside you. If you're a Pisces Aquarius person born this week, no matter how passive you are, you can be quite passive. Doesn't mean weak, just means passive. You can and will rebel when you need to. You can tap into that. It's not always a good thing, depending on the cause, but if it's to protect yourself, or if it's from if it's from a government or a group or something that's oppressing you, right, and not giving you your right to space and freedom and to think for yourself, then yeah, that's a good reason to rebel. So that chip on their shoulder can be that little rebelliousness that they can have. Matt Dillon, for example. Matt Dillon is an actor born on this cusp that plays edgy roles, right? He played Dally in The Outsiders, and he's played all sorts of kind of edgy, rebellious, or kind of guys that are a little off characters, but also sensitive. You can see in Matt Dillon's acting, as tough as he is, as tough as he's trying to be and macho, he has a thoughtfulness, but he also has a sensitivity to him as well. And that chip belies a lot of sensitivity with these folks. Again, it's that exterior, especially for a man. Like a man born this week could be like the strong, silent type, or just kind of a hip intellectual, kind of detached guy that doesn't show his vulnerability or feelings. So you would think this person's not very sensitive at all. But it really does belie that deep down inside, they are very sensitive. And it's not just because we're coming up on Pisces. It's not just the Pisces influence. The Aquarius is, more sensitive in a more cerebral fashion. So you're combining that. Again, that's the thought and the feeling. Thoughts and feelings combined. Feeling thoughts and thoughtful feelings, kind of, for Aquarius Pisces people. So yeah, they can have a little chip on their shoulder. I have noticed that about a couple people I've worked with that were born this week. They could be friendly one day, and then the next kind of a little distant, maybe a little edgy. But who knows why? They may have their reasons. Maybe they didn't like the job. I'm only seeing them in one context. So this is very much an active versus passive cusp, and that's most cusps. And that can be very difficult. I'd like to be able to talk to more cusp people here in the chat. Hopefully we can get more cusp people this year, that we can maybe look at some charts and talk to them about how they try to reconcile and balance that activity or that masculine side with the passivity and the more feminine or inner side, because there's both there. And the active versus passive, they can often be one or the other depending on the day. And that's why some of these things keep changing. But it can also lead to a fear of rejection, because there's sometimes They don't want to put themselves out there too much, and they may need to, in certain situations, it may require the Aquarius Pisces person to be a little less timid and put yourself out there a little bit more than you're used to. And whether or not the person gets more comfortable with that as they get in past their first Saturn return, and then the second Saturn hit in their late 30s, and then subsequent Saturns from there, that usually works better after 40. After you go through the Uranus aspect in the early 40s, then it usually gets better. And someone born on this cusp would kind of even out and probably be more balanced with the air and water, most likely probably, after closer to 45, I would say, 40, 45-ish. But they could have that fear of rejection. And so it can be hard for them to know the timing. They could care very much about their private inner life, but they also care about their career and being active in a group. The Aquarius is the group sign, and Pisces is service, like kind of emotional service. And Pisces needs to be, we'll talk more about this next week. Pisces is a sign that really needs to be dialed into whatever it is they're doing in their life. Emotionally, they really need to be dialed into it. Otherwise, it could be hard for Pisces to be motivated. But this combination is active and passive, and sometimes it's at the same time. And I noticed that with some of the actors that I watch there on this cusp too, male or female, it doesn't really matter. Some of the women, they can be kind of sweet and feminine, but they also have this kind of masculine side to them. And then the men can be kind of edgy and macho, but also kind of a sweet or sensitive side. So it depends on what they're tapping into, and that, of course, that's acting. So, but a lot of talent here. There's always natural talent with Aquarius anywhere there is in the chart, but there's always natural pure creativity and soul wisdom with Pisces planets, which we'll talk a lot more about in the coming weeks. Soul and wisdom, definitely very much Pisces being the 12th, being the last sign of the zodiac. Well, it's nice to see more people coming in. A lot of people are popping in and out, but that's good. And please, I'm halfway through. I don't want to bore any of you, so please always keep the comments coming on my videos or live streams, and let me know what you guys and gals want to hear and want to talk about, because I want you all to be engaged. And the more people we have talking, not only are you engaged with me, but you're engaged with each other astrologically, so you can help each other as well. I like being in live streams sometimes, and I like just watching the comments. Sometimes I'll just sit there and watch the comments. And it's great, and I learn things that way as well. So people on this cusp are very concerned. So yes, they can have their flaws. Yes, they can be overly sensitive and rebellious and have a chip on their shoulder. But people on this cusp are very, very concerned people. They can really have a pure concern for humanity, possibly more so than any other cusp period in the year. The combination of positive Aquarius and caring, devoted Pisces, when that person is mature and positive and ideally spiritually evolved, that person will have the right amount of concern and caring. Not too much, not too little, not too detached, and not too smothering, right? And that's what we all kind of strive to be with our loved ones, is we want to show people we love them. We don't want to be too smothering, but you can't, if you're too far back, then people say, hey, don't you care? So, you want to have that balance. But very, very concerned and caring people on this cusp. And there's a universal caring or a universal love that Aquarius Pisces cusp people ascribe to. So no matter how cold or aloof they seem from a distance, and again, if you don't know them well, you don't know if that's just an act to protect themselves, if it's even a conscious thing, or just intense shyness too. Sometimes people, I've talked to introverts before especially CUSP people that are introverts that I've gotten to know over the years. And then when I get to know them, I realize, wow, this person they're not a cold person, but they are so shy that it's a lot of work to get to kind of some of their warmth, the warmth and friendliness, that's inside them. So, we all have layers. We all have layers. So, it takes time. But there's an intimate theme here too. So universal theme and intimate theme. That's air, water, water, air. Do I want to be universal and look at the group, or do I want to be intimate with another person or a small group? Intimate could be like even a 2 or 3, like a small family unit, or your animals. I've known people on this cusp. Oh, I've known many women on this cusp that are champions of animals. That's a given. Very much, even if not formally, very much animal activists and animal lovers. But I mean really animal lovers. I don't mean just superficially. Like really, really can communicate and tune into animals. And animals love them. They love their energy. I love their sort of like kind of that calm energy. But definitely very concerned with the universal, the group, animals, and then intimate, which can be with one person or a small group or yourself. That's another thing. Aquarius Pisces people might be more touchy-feely or more intimate with themselves, and they may not always show that to others. So others, if they know them, if the other person knows the Aquarius Pisces person well, they will know that they have that side, but they just might not show that side to many people. So they can erect fences. They can put fences up, and that can be literal or metaphorical. It could be Aquarius. This is very much true for the Gemini Cancer cusp people as well. They kind of like to be sometimes in an ivory tower protected. And so they can make these fences, mental or emotional fences, to keep the messiness out, or to keep the less evolved or lower evolved people out. And whether that's a good thing or not depends on how much you isolate yourself. So if it gets to the point where we isolate ourselves too much, there's a point where we have to kind of get back in the game of life and expose ourselves a little bit. So expose, that's an important lesson for people on this cusp, is to learn to expose a little bit, to be a little more brave and expose those spiritual themes and gifts that you're into and that you vibe with. And even the most mundane Aquarius Pisces person that has a traditional job, 100%, thank you, I appreciate that, has, even if they have a traditional job or a blue collar job, something more straight-laced and simple and more earthy, this Aquarius Pisces person will undoubtedly have some kind of hobby or interest that is wacky and out there. Undoubtedly, no matter how straight-laced this person is. I have a service person that comes to my house. He is just a very friendly, straight-laced guy, comes in, does the business, does the work, here's your check, or here's your amount, here's what you owe, and leaves with a smile and says, see you next year. But I found out that he was born on this cusp, and he's into all sorts of, Chinese wisdom, Chinese astrology, Eastern philosophy. He just told me this one day. This is a service guy. I would have never thought it, would have never guessed it. But he just told me, oh yeah, I'm into that. I love the Chinese astrology. He goes, I love the Eastern philosophy. He goes, I'm into all that. He goes, I'm a blue collar guy, but so it's just interesting. So anyone born this week, it doesn't matter what your job is, your vocation, or what kind of schooling you had or training, there's always going to be that combination of Uranus and Neptune for some wackiness and something offbeat. And for the most part, people find that interesting. This is not someone that's boring. Oh, and I want to mention, it's been a long time since I mentioned the English musician Space Hotel. Paul Timpson. It's been a long time since I mentioned him or done anything on his videos, but I think he has some new music. But Space Hotel. He's born. I think he's the 22nd. I believe he's coming up. So his music's great. So definitely check him out. But he's someone that his music is so interesting with that combination of air and water. It's definitely not boring. So people born on this cusp are not boring, and they don't want to be bored. They can be bored easily, but they can also be satisfied easily in a sense because they have that need for quiet and that intimacy, and they like their space. So if they can enjoy that in their life, they have enough outwardly, enough with their spiritual or philosophical interests, or enough with their work, then they could be, they can feel more satisfied like that. So another lesson, in addition to breaking down some of those fences, is to be firm, and that's more so, I think, with themselves, but it's also being firm to be able to say no to people when you want, and you don't need a reason to just say no. And Aquarius can be very altruistic, the Aquarius side, and the Pisces side can be very giving, sometimes too much, which we'll talk more about with Pisces. So that combination, sometimes people can take advantage of an Aquarius Pisces person and that kindness, even though they have a rebel in them. You have a rebel in you if you're born that week, but people can take advantage of that kindness. So if someone is taking, if you feel like your boundaries are not quite there, respected, then you have to be firm first with yourself, just to be able to say to yourself, hey, this is what I'm willing to give. I know I need to give this to be able to receive, but I also can't just give everything and I'm not getting any kindness or anything good back. And sometimes that's tough. You're never boring. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I try. That's not what I think about myself sometimes, but that's I appreciate it. But yeah. So to be firm with yourself and know that when you feel like if you are taken advantage of or someone else isn't respecting your boundaries, so you can actually, I would say, for a Pisces Aquarius, be a little more selfish, because your MO is not to be selfish. That doesn't mean you never think of yourself, because you are self-protective with your fences, and you never think of yourself because you are self-protective with your fences and your privacy, and you do that for your own mental health as well. But I think it would be good for an Aquarius Pisces person to be more selfish. That's okay, and the selfish in terms of self-care. When we all take care of ourselves, if there's someone in your family or friend circle that don't want you to take care of yourself, your health, your mental health, well, they're probably not a good person, and they're probably, a narcissist, because if they can't respect that you want to take care of yourself so that you can be, if you take care of yourself and you're more selfish, you're going to be a better spouse, you're going to be a better parent, you're going to be a better friend, a better coworker, or a worker for your boss. You're going to be a better team member if you're on a community club, or a board or something. So if you don't take care of yourself and you don't have your boundaries, you're not going to be able to be your best self to others. So be selfish in a good way, and be able to say no. And that theme will be very much a theme I'll talk a lot about when we get to Pisces, because Pisces is the most complicated sign in so many ways, mostly because it's the last sign. And some astrologers believe that Pisces people have been all 11 signs in previous lives before choosing to be a Pisces in this life. So whether you believe in that or not, I don't know, but that's what's so interesting about Pisces. So yeah, try just try to be a little, every now and then indulge yourself, selfish, but with good things, with healthy things like get a massage or get your feet done, have a bath, meditate, yoga, whatever you need to get, and even get near the ocean, because any of the water cusp, not just the full water signs, but the cusp water sign people, the Libra, Scorpio, Aquarius, Pisces, and then Gemini, Cancer cusp in the summer. The cusp people with water, even if it's just a little bit of water influence, you got to get near the water, because that's very healing. It's very healing for anybody with major water planets in their natal chart. So the phrases here are I know versus I believe. So again, I mentioned at the beginning that the seesaw of the cusp. So I know and I believe. So again, there's that mental versus that emotional nature. So what do I believe? What do I feel? But what do I know? So kind of head versus heart, and that's when you combine these two with the two signs, you either get someone that's fair or kind of inflexible. And Aquarius, Pisces people tend to be very fair, but they do have a side of them that is, I wouldn't call it stubborn, but that knows what they know. And when you combine the knowledge base of Aquarius with the emotional belief system, strong beliefs of Pisces, or the faith of Pisces, it can be very positive, but it can also be, this is really what I believe. This is really important for my mental and physical health, or mental and emotional health. And it can be hard for them to be brave and to see other points of view at times. If that is too strong, they can be inflexible in that way. And that's the little quiet rebel. So the transits, I realized before I didn't really talk about the transits. I apologize for that. Smash says Gemini, Cancer people are definitely like that. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're very magical people born on that cusp. They're very interesting, and they would be like Harry Potter. They would be like people that would be into magic or Harry Potter or wizards, kind of thing, but also people maybe on this cusp as well. So let's talk about the transits quick, and then we'll go into the celebrities. So we're at the end here on February 14th, Valentine's Day. We're at 26 of Aquarius, and we are squaring Uranus. So now that's very temporary. Sun's moving really quick. Tomorrow's 27, the next day's 28, 29, and then we're at 0 of Pisces next week. Then we'll be at 1 of Pisces. This Uranus at Taurus has been retrograde for so long, it's now stationed direct at 23. But this weekend, the Sun in Aquarius is square Uranus in Taurus. And the interesting part of that is the Aquarius Sun is the cusp. The Uranus in Taurus is just a late Taurus energy, but it's also kind of a stubborn, wild energy. So when you're taking the Sun and Uranus in the cosmic sky squaring, that's explosive. But it can be explosive in a good way, in just lighting things up and lighting up the truth right now. And look at all the stuff that's coming out. So there's so many things that have come out about the government and government's handling of currencies and debt and money. There's so many things that are coming out that even 2 or 3 years ago, these things weren't even uncovered necessarily. Or if they were, it was on a much more low key or down low level. So a lot of these things are coming up. So this weekend with the Sun square Uranus, if a baby's born tonight or tomorrow, a baby will have that. This baby would be a true individual with the Sun square Uranus and Taurus. And they're in fixed signs. So not only would they be an individual, but they would be a bit stubborn and really want to do their own thing. So that aspect is just, it's creating some tension in the sky with all of us wanting to do our own thing. So maybe take the weekend off from any heavy involvements, especially with all the air and the Pisces, because this is going to pass. It's going to pass the Uranus, It's actually already passed. It was at 23, but it's going to pass that. And then, of course, Mercury is now at 0. I'm sorry. Oh, it's actually 1. 1 degree of Pisces. Now, I was having a lot of technical difficulties today with everything, with my phone, with my apps. I had to do a Zoom meeting. I was a half an hour late for my Zoom meeting. Nothing worked. My phone didn't work. The cellular didn't work. I tried one platform, didn't work. I had to call an office. The office had to get me another office. That second office gave me a private link with the person I had to meet with. And that didn't work until the third try. So Mercury is not even retrograde. So for all the Mercury retrograde astrology buff people, what the heck? And then I was having trouble with both my Instagram and X accounts before I did the live stream thumbnail. Thank God this is working. But everything since 7 o'clock this morning, at least in my world, has been totally kind of retrograde. Now, Uranus, which rules technology, isn't even retrograde anymore. So for me, it's more aligned with what's in my chart, because I have Mars is retrograde in Cancer, which we've been talking about, but it's gone way back to 17 of Cancer here. So anyone with cardinal degrees, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, are getting a square or an opposition from Cancer. Capricorn will get the opposition, Aries and Libra the square. So I think that's what's happening to me. I'm getting some alignments there. And I'm also getting a Pluto square that I have, that we'll have for a little while too, which I'm feeling. So it's really interesting. It doesn't matter what age you are. When you tune into these energies, you see it. But yeah, today was a total mess, but I just rolled with it. But it could be Mercury in Pisces. Mercury is at 1 of Pisces, which is a cusp degree. Now, Mercury is not well placed in Pisces astrologically. It's sort of in a weak placement. Being a dreamy, passive sign, Mercury doesn't like it in Pisces because it's not defined, it's not necessarily practical, and it's not necessarily have a lot of mental drive either. So Mercury in Pisces, not well placed. So between that, even though it's not retrograde, between that and the Sun-Uranus square, maybe take a few days off from making any heavy decisions. I know I'm going to do that. So Venus is in Aries right now. That throws an interesting mix. It's now at 6 of Aries. So, of course, today being Valentine's Day and people thinking about love and all kinds of love, platonic love, intimate love, friendships. It's Venus is in Aries. So that is helping. That's helping at least our love nature to be a little more straightforward about being able to demonstrate to people, what's going on with you or what you're feeling. Venus in Aries is also not well placed like Mercury in Pisces, though. Aries is a little rough and aggressive for Miss Venus. So take that with a grain of salt. But that's basically the only fire in the cosmic chart is that Venus in Aries for today, for love. And Venus in Aries is quick. For love, it's quick. It's demonstrative. You really need to consider others, because Aries Venus people can be very selfish and very self-centered, even if it's by accident. But I've known a lot of Venus Aries people in different capacities. It's not easy for them to consider other people's feelings or point of view. And they are warm. And so it's also a lesson for us that we can be warm and use that Venus Aries energy right now, even before we go into Sun in Aries, to be warm with people and maybe not quite as detached as we have been during this mental Aquarius time kind of thing. So we have the Venus in Aries, and then of course the Mars, not quite, but it will be squaring Mars soon. It's square by degree, by signs, because they're both cardinal. But Mars is at 17 retrograde of Cancer. I think that's the monkey wrench right now in the cosmos. And I heard a couple other astrologers mentioning that. So we went all the way up to Mars and Leo, stationed. We came all the way back into the 20s of Mars and Cancer. Now we're all the way back at 17 retrograde. So now we have to go 12.5 degrees more once we go direct. And Mars goes direct Okay, 9 days, the 23rd. So that's good. So for the next 9 days, the energy is iffy, and it's in water, so it's not straightforward. It's Cancer. It's moving sideways. Our energy right now is moving sideways. There's a lot of politicians and a lot of people on the news and that are not telling us the real deal. They're sidestepping, or what's that old-fashioned phrase? Talking out the side of your neck. That's it. Talking out the side of your neck. So there's a lot of people in the public eye, officials, even health stuff. You can't believe everything you hear, good or bad. You can't hear everything. You gotta think critically. When you can't just blindly believe things, because things are very carefully crafted on the media. So a lot of that with the Mercury in Pisces is going to be hazy, and Mars in Cancer retrograde. So I think that's the throwing the monkey wrench into the energy right now. And then we have Jupiter in Gemini. So Jupiter's expansion, but that's direct now, which is good. And that's especially good for Gemini people for communication and health to move. Now that's moving forward. And then, of course, Saturn is still stationed direct at 19 of Pisces. And Jupiter is almost square. Jupiter and Saturn are almost square Pisces. Or Jupiter and Gemini is almost square Saturn Pisces, a little more. Then we have the Neptune, the critical degree at 28 of Pisces. That's a CUSP degree. And this is in its home. So Neptune, a lot of astrologers talking about the transit of Neptune and Pisces. Neptune and Pisces is the dispositor. So it's completely comfortable. It's its own planet, right? Neptune likes Pisces and Pisces likes Neptune. So it's comfortable. It's like, hey, I'm in my element. I'm in my element. I like this. And the North Node is also a critical degree at retrograde at 29 degrees. And that's big. Neptune conjunct the North Node. There's a lot of lessons going on behind the scenes right now. There's so many lessons for people on a global scale of, the Neptune in Pisces is been comfortable, but it's also can avoid conflict and avoid anything that's direct and too much exposure. And it could be escapist and avoid things. Pisces can avoid things that needs to be dealt with. So that Neptune and Pisces at a critical degree, that's getting closer to Aries. And then this North Node, which is, it went into Aries and it came back and went back into Pisces. There's a lot of sensitivity going on there globally, a lot of shifts and changes behind the scenes, especially with, movie production, Hollywood, health, liquids, vaccines. Like a lot of that is under the rulership of Neptune, or it's Neptune related. So a lot of those things are happening behind the scenes that we don't see. And that's a lot of this Neptune conjunct the North Node in Pisces. So you can imagine any politicians or famous people that have a late degree Pisces planet, if they have Sun, Moon, Rising, or a Mars, and this conjunction is on their, and it's conjuncting their natal planet, imagine how fuzzy and kind of off that could be influencing them. That's definitely a factor. But it's deep shifts. It's deep shifts, and it's behind the scenes. Now, of course, it depends on if you have any late Pisces planets in your chart. This conjunction could be conjuncting, or it did conjunct your late Mars anywhere between like 24 and 29 degrees of Pisces. If you have a late Pisces planet, you're getting this conjunction. So that it could fire your Pisces up for creativity, or it can just make you feel disillusioned and kind of cut off. So if it's a feeling of cut off, it will flow, and you have to flow to be able to get over that. But it will move on. And then those deep shifts behind the scenes is just a relation to the 12th house, because Pisces is the 12th house sign. And there are a few really good astrologers on YouTube that talk about they'll talk about the water houses a lot, and how deep the water houses are important in astrology. And I agree with that with natal astrology. All the houses are important. All these houses, when you look at, this is a baby's chart tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But every house is important because it gives you focus for your planets. But the water houses are really, really deep. For people that have a lot of planets in their water houses, there's a lot of goodness and a lot of interesting qualities that are buried beneath that a lot of the public doesn't see, even if that person doesn't have a lot of water signs in their chart, but they have other signs that are in water houses. So that's kind of what all this relates to, is kind of like the 12th house of hidden doings, behind the scenes kinds of things, and sort of like its own. It's almost like the countries that have this late degree, or it's almost like that they're acting. It's like a play or a movie, and some of it is behind the scenes, and some of it's kind of coming up to the surface, but it's coming back down, coming up to the surface, kind of thing. Seesaw. So a lot of that is that Pisces energy, and then we also have the I mentioned Saturn at 19 of Pisces. That's direct, and then we still have Pluto. Pluto's moved a little bit now here at 2 of Aquarius, so that's moved a little bit. So remember, I mentioned when people were at 0, 1, 2 in Aquarius, people that were early Aquarius, they got their conjunction from Pluto, and then those people, the later Aquarius people, a little bit later, next year will get a conjunction, and then so forth for the next 19 years, kind of thing. But I wanted to mention that Neptune goes into Aries. This Neptune Pisces, it goes into Aries on May 14th. So in a season, in 3 months, things are going to change a lot. And I know we keep saying that because I probably said that 3 months ago. Karen says, your transit analysis sure reflects the political scenario going on with the government. Yeah, I know. It really does. And it's so interesting how I keep seeing astrologers from all over the world, and we're all so different. And if there wasn't a thread of truth to this, why are we all talking about the same things, not copying each other? But why are we all tuning into the same kinds of concepts? If it didn't have any value, I don't think any of us would continue. We wouldn't put any energy into it and continue doing it. So there's definitely things to kind of decode, so to speak. There's things to decode, and that's what makes it kind of endless and infinite. That's why everybody just keeps going with it, because the political climate is just erratic, erratic to say the least. So all that stuff going on, and also the let's see, we have Mercury will be retrograde in a month on the 15th of March, and of course that will it's going to go into Pisces to Aries and then retrograde. So again, that'll be just another pause and reflect. And that when it pauses and reflects in the same sign, so let's say, for example, Mercury's in Pisces now. So you see like every astrologer in the world talking about Mercury retrograde. So you got Mercury in Pisces now. It's going to move. Sometimes it goes into the next sign, and then it quickly comes back and it goes retrograde, and it pauses. So it's really just a time to just say, well, what was happening? Remember when Jeff mentioned when Mercury was at 1 of Pisces, what was going on in the world, or what was going on with me, with my chart, and just revisit that quickly and pause on that, and maybe refine that, refine your decisions or your actions based on that. And then as the retrograde kind of holds there for a little bit, it holds, then it goes stationary, then it goes into the next sign, and then it has a clearer path. But it's just a time to, I look at it like, for those of us, no one's perfect. For those of us that are really, like, we all know people like this in our family or friends. There's always 1 or 2 people that are just like incredibly impatient, right? We always know one or two people that are like that. No matter what they do in their lives, they can't seem to learn patience for whatever reason. So I would imagine Mars retrograde or Mercury retrograde is not easy for people that are really, really impatient, because they are used to a certain standard of like getting things done or achieving things and taking care of business. And, you know, that life isn't one pace, right? So when we learn, when we don't learn to flow with different paces, it's much harder. But someone that's super impatient, and I don't mean just like a little impatient, but someone that's like that's their personality type, that they're very impatient all the time. They are expecting, so something doesn't happen, or they have to pause and reflect on something because Mercury's retrograde. To them, it could be a feeling of like, oh my God, the world's ending. The world is stopping. Like I can't do anything. Everything's fuzzy. But again, a lot of that is just it's things we don't have control over. So, you know, a lot of the people health oriented people I follow on social media, a lot of them would just say, you know, it's an illusion. Those things you're trying to control are an illusion. You know, we all want some control over our daily lives, but there's so much of it that that you can't control. So the Mercury and the Mars retrograde and the Mercury retrograde in a month, you just have to revisit the sign and revisit the month or 3 months prior to kind of how you felt or what you were going through. Now that also goes for, so Neptune, this Neptune is going to go into Aries, and when it does, Neptune is not comfortable in Aries like it is in Pisces. It's so different, but it's going to fire up the imagination of the globe, the consciousness. The consciousness is going to be raised. Aries, most Aries planets, depending on the aspects, are not afraid to take risks and chances. And even at the thought of people not being receptive to it or not liking it, Aries planets just, and we'll talk about that when we get to Aries, are just unique like that. So with the Mars retrograde, once it goes direct, and that will help, but it's just, you know, it's like going back to the impatient people. It's like you don't want to stop everything, but it might be an opportunity to learn patience and to just slow down a little bit. And as we go into Pisces, when we talk about Pisces, Pisces is so different than Aquarius and so different than the sign that starts the zodiac after it, which is Aries. So there's always that balance. But if a baby had this chart born tonight, he or she would have, I mean, it's always an interesting chart, but it is a lot of interesting energy going on there. But one last thing I wanted to mention before I get to the celebrities is think back to 2011. Okay, so 14 years ago, or 13 and a half, think back to what was happening in your life and your relationships in 2011. That was 14 years ago. So try to make a mental note or look at your calendar or journal. And so that's how long we've had this Pisces Neptune transit in its own sign, in its own home, since 2011. Now I know an enormous amount of living has happened in my life in the last 14 years. It feels like a heck of a lot more than 14 years. It just, so it depends on your life and what you've been through, struggles or achievements. But yeah, you know, that 14, it's been a long 14 years between the 2010s coming after the, what was it, the 2008, 2009 financial crash, starting the 10s, people trying to make their money back with their investments and things, trying to gain some ground. And then, of course, 19 and 20 going into COVID. And here we are in the middle of the decade in 25. I mean, it seems like the world has lived 30 or 40 years in the last 15. That's what it feels like. So I think a lot of people feel like that. But think about that, 2011. And you can also go back to 2008 or 2009, depending on your natal chart, and to look at any of the Pisces, any of the transiting Pisces, and where it might have been in your chart. But the last time we had Neptune in Aries was 1861 to 1875. And again, now there you go. There's another 14-year period, 1861. So all the changes there in the latter part of the 1800s there, and of course Civil War and the more direct fighting, because Aries represents fighting or attack that's much more direct and that's transparent, rather than other energies like Pisces, which is more behind the scenes or possibly more manipulative. But yeah, we had the Civil War, 1861, 1875, and you can look at some of the celebrities that were, or just famous people that were prominent during that time. And but yeah, we're going to be, that Neptune in Aries is going to be for a good portion of the, it's going to be for the 20s and then the 30s. 2039, we're going to have Neptune in Aries until. So when you think about Neptune in Aries till 2039, Pluto and Aquarius till 2043. So those two together, not even mentioning Saturn. There's a lot there for Aquarius and Aries planets. Remember, I kept talking about, like even a year ago, I was talking about how there's so much with the Capricorn and Aquarius going on in the previous decade. And then the Aquarius and Pisces, all this coming up to conjuncting these planets. Well, now Aries, and that goes along with the node when it goes back into Aries too. So much Aries energy is going to be conjuncted. And maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe there's a spiritual lesson there for Aries, because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, which we talk about when we start in March. And Aries planets can be and are very apt to be the most impatient energy in the zodiac, because it is the first and wants to be the first. And that also goes for people that have planets in their first house too. If anyone has planets in their first house, which I know people that have no Aries in their chart, but they have planets in the first house, and they are very fiery and very kind of Aries-like. So it's interesting. So lots to talk about with the transits. And I think in the next week or two, I'll try to do a mini live stream, like in the middle of the week, maybe next week. And we'll just talk about transits, and we'll look at some couple celebrity charts. We'll just do transits. So if anyone has any preference or ideas for like a Wednesday, maybe like a Wednesday afternoon, like maybe late afternoon Eastern Standard Time, or even maybe like a Thursday or Friday morning. I'd have to do it early though, and maybe 8 or 8:30 a.m. possibly, but we'll think about that. So celebrities born on this cusp, we have Steve Roach. He's kind of an esoteric ambient composer. Really, really awesome though. Very, very good, kind of new age and very ethereal. And that's another adjective I'd use to describe people on this cusp is ethereal. Andy Taylor from the group Duran Duran, who have global success. And Andy's one of the rebels of the group. He's one of the members that has not been a consistent member of the group since the late 70s in England, although he has been very consistent in giving them a certain guitar sound that's very talented and very unique. But it's interesting that as the Aquarius Pisces in the group, when the guys were having either drug problems or fighting, he was the one to be like, I'm out of here. So that's not surprising. John Hughes, possibly the most critically acclaimed director of romantic comedies in the 80s and early 90s. You know, he did 16 Candles, Home Alone. I think he did The Breakfast Club. You know, all those iconic movies that dealt with all kinds of emotional outcasts, eccentricities, teen angst, teen emotions, all that stuff. So, you know, he was so gifted at doing those movies because he went through some of that as a Pisces Aquarius. Lorena McKennitt, she's another ambient composer, but she's also more, has a more of a like a Scottish or Scotch kind of new age pop bent to her. Very, very beautiful music, intelligent. Paul Dean, he's a guitarist for the group Loverboy from Canada. Very, very specific, unique guitar sound. And that's another thing about Aquarius. Like if an Aquarius male is a musician, he's going to bring a masculine energy because Aquarius is masculine, and it rules electricity, which is great for electric instruments. But he's also going to bring a feminine energy as well, being on the cusp. And then a female musician that's a Pisces would be the same way. She's on this cusp. She's going to bring a femininity with also a masculine side, tapping into the Aquarius cusp. Walter Becker, he is the late musician of one half of Steely Dan, one of the most acclaimed pop, rock, jazz groups. Steely Dan is like considered yacht rock, and it's very, very well liked. And he's just an absolute monster as far as a musician. Amazing. Kurt Cobain, I think anyone in any language probably know who Kurt Cobain is, no matter what country you mention him in. And it's amazing to think it's been 30 years since we lost him, since he passed. But he was the lead singer of the grunge Seattle group in the early 90s, late 80s, Nirvana. And what's interesting about Kurt is, I have his chart right here. Kurt was a very troubled person. He was the lead singer, guitarist, and primary songwriter. And he was a very tortured soul, from what I read and in interviews, and he was extremely sensitive. He was the sun at 1 degree of Pisces with a Cancer moon, and with a Virgo ascendant. Next to Pluto. So, I mean, a lot of lessons for him. But what's interesting is Kurt seemed to be possibly unduly manipulated by people in the industry and or other fellow musicians and taken advantage of. And he had no fire signs in his chart for confidence or even selfishness. So he had an amazing, he had a Saturn, Chiron, Venus, and Mercury stellium, all in Pisces. And then he had a grand trine with Mercury, Neptune, Jupiter, Venus, Chiron, and Saturn. So maybe I'll talk more about Kurt in the future. But Kurt Cobain on this list, he's probably the best example of an Aquarius Pisces cusp celebrity, because the sound of Nirvana is so electric and crunchy, and it's unlike anything else. It's very unique, but it's also very troubled, melancholy, and emotional. So very much like him. And of course, that group had Dave Grohl in it, who was famous for Foo Fighters, Capricorn. So that's interesting. Last one is Manny Elias. He is a keyboardist and producer that worked in the 70s and 80s. He was primarily, he helped Tears for Fears, the duo from England. He helped them to compose and produce some of their music, and really was instrumental, no pun intended, instrumental in a lot of their music, especially the songs from the Big Chair album from 1985, which is some of the best music, I think, from the 80s, and the best music from Tears for Fears. Everybody Wants to Rule the World, Head Over Heels, amazing stuff. How about Sidney Poitier? Yes, Sidney. I think, I believe I'll probably mention him next week. I think Sidney is, I think he's a Pisces 1. Let me see. I could see if I can look him up. Let's see. Sidney. Let's see. I'll take a quick look. Let's see. Because I don't have him up on my list. Yeah, I don't have him here, but yeah, he's definitely was Pisces, and I think he's a Pisces 1. So I could try to, I'll put him down. I'll mention him next week. Sidney's Poitier. Yeah, he was very interesting. Very, very, very interesting actor. Yep. So so I think, oh wow, we're already 20 minutes after 9. So thank you so much for tuning in. I saw a lot of people come and go. I appreciate hanging in there and talking about the celebrities, the transits, Aquarius, Pisces. Next week we'll talk about just Pisces, and probably in the next couple weeks I'll have either an Aquarius Pisces video or a combination, a little Aquarius Pisces, and then we'll start talking about just pure Pisces. So if you know anyone that's born February 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, coming right up to around March 1st, they are Pisces, and they're going to be early Pisces, not cusp, like people born this week up to the 22nd. So thanks for a great live stream. You're very welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. I really, really appreciate it. Again, my subscriber base is growing, but it's growing really, really slow. So anything to get the word out, I really, really, really appreciate it. Okay, everyone be safe, especially with all the bad weather and everything. And I'll see you on the live stream next week. Maybe look, you can follow me on X or Instagram. Look for maybe a midstream or midweek live stream if I could try to do one, maybe a short one, like half hour or so. So we'll see. But thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. And happy birthday to all the Aquarius Pisces people that have a birthday this week. Enjoy your week. Be safe.